Hello and welcome to episode 142 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is May 23rd, 2022. Today I'm wearing the Virus shawl. This is a crochet pattern that's been around for quite a while, and I think it's called Virus because the pattern spread like a virus and everybody seemed to be crocheting it for a while. And I had meant to crochet one for a long time, and then one day I was given this yarn, this color gradient yarn ball as a present, and I thought this would make a really nice Virus shawl. And then finally I got to crochet one myself, and it is a really nice pattern. Once you know how it works up really quickly and fairly easily. Yeah, so these are my favorite colors, so I'm really happy with this shawl. Yeah, can't remember when I crocheted it, but it's not too long ago. I was already podcasting, so there should be some podcast episodes where I crocheted this. The jacket, on the other hand, is fairly old. I knitted that and I even designed that back when I was working for Wolldackel, the yarn company that I first started working in yarn and with knitting and so on. And I designed that, and back then I was told to design a white jacket with contrasting beige edges at the collar and at the sleeve cuffs. And I knew I didn't want, I knew I could keep the piece once it'd been photographed and everything, but I know I don't like beige, so with the collar it was no problem because this is knitted on, I think this is the last thing that's knitted on this jacket. So it's really easy to undo it and knit it up in a different color. But with the sleeves, they are knit from the bottom up. It would have been more difficult. So what I did is I started the sleeve at the white part with the provisional cast on, then picked up the stitches and knit the cuff later, so it was easy to undo and knit in a different color. And for a while I was thinking, if I want to, I can re-knit them every year in a different color, but so far I haven't. This is the first color I chose after I got the jacket back. Yeah, it has lots and lots of cables. It even has a bit of waist shaping, something I rarely do, especially for jackets, especially for things that are quite wide anyway. But I like it. I don't mind that being there. And yeah, here you can see the waist shaping a bit clearer because the braid sort of goes in and then comes out again. It's a pure cotton yarn and I really, really like this. Yeah, so something old, something less old and all in cotton as the weather finally got warm enough to be running around in cotton things. Yeah, so much to what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. I have one finished object today. And today I'm only showing the things that I knit during my holidays the last 2 weeks. And that's how you will know what I took with me, because last time I was still pondering and not sure what to take with me. So everything you'll see today I took with me on holiday and I knit during that time. So my finished object, as you will probably have guessed, are the Sock Madness socks. That was the Strawberry Martini pattern by Jackie Goldburn. That was the round 4 of the Sock Madness. And as I had expected, that's the round that I became a cheerleader, which means I was too late. I didn't get one of the spots on my team. That means now I'm a cheerleader. I'm no longer competing, but I still get the patterns. And if I knit the round patterns quickly enough, I will also get the bonus patterns straight away. But if not, I can get them at the end of the Sock Madness, so that's okay. But back to this pattern. It's, as I said, it's called the Strawberry Martini pattern. And as every Sock Madness pattern, there is a lot going on. So we started with this little pattern for the cuff. and it has lots and lots of twisted stitches. It has this little flower-like motif. This looks a bit like the Paris socks by Mina Philipp, and a bit like the sock that I once tried to design. Yeah, so that's that pattern, but then it changes and it goes into this beautiful lace pattern that has some bubbles on the edge. Yeah, and then there's a different pattern on the front of the foot, which has the bubbles in the middle. And then you have these, yeah, lacy bits and the pattern that looks a bit like cables, but it's just increases and decreases. And then there's a little pattern in between those two patterns. So this is sort of like on the edge of the leg and the foot. Yeah, so a lot going on. It's this, I think the pattern calls this a strong heel, which is, yeah, just this way of increasing stitches for the heel. And I knit both the socks at the same time because there's so many, there was such big charts, and we had to knit from 2 different charts for the front and for the back of the leg. So I decided to knit both socks at the same time, so I only have to look at the charts once. Yeah, and I was about to knit the heel, the increases for the heel, when the last spot on my team was filled. So I knew I was no longer going to make it, which also meant I didn't have to knit to the minimum requirements anymore. I had already finished the long leg. It's fairly long for my legs and for my taste, but that's okay. But I knew I didn't have to follow the instructions anymore. So I did fewer increases for the heel because this kind of heel tends to be too big for me. And then I did the heel flat. No, what's that called? Well, I did this bit of the heel. I turned the heel, I think that's what it's called. And then I knit fewer rounds for the foot so that the sock fits me, and they fit me perfectly. I used the same yarn ball from both ends, so I knit from the inside and the outside of the yarn ball at the same time, so you can see the color stripes are at different points, and it also, the color sequence also runs in different directions, which doesn't really show with this colorway. The yarn is opal sock yarn as usual, but it's a really old colorway out of my personal stash, and it's one of those opal yarns that has a bit more, a bit less wool and a bit more other stuff. So it's not only polyamide, but it's some other material. I forgot what it's called. And these are supposed to be good for doing sports. So it's supposed to absorb the sweat more easily, and I don't know. But they're really nice, they're really beautiful, and I'm really happy to have a new pair of socks. And because I'm no longer competing, they fit me. The Strawberry Martini socks, the pattern will be available as soon as the sock madness is over, is what the designer said. So that's my one finished object for this week. I have 3 new cast-ons. So I have a few too many projects on the needles at the moment, but I have several projects that are close to being done. So maybe next week or the week after, I will probably have more finished objects than new cast-ons, so that's good. The next sock pattern, not pattern, but the next sock project that's on my needles are the cat socks for my nephew, and they are almost finished. So if you look at them like this, they look like a finished object, but they are not, because there are no cats yet. So the socks themselves are, I finished the knitting on the socks during my holidays, but I didn't bring the yarn I need to embroider the faces. So I could have started embroidering the ears, but I just didn't feel like it. And this was all the black yarn that I had left after finishing the second sock. So I'm not even sure that would have been enough. But the thing I'm going to do, hopefully this week, is embroider the ears and then embroider little faces, and then these socks will be a proper finished project, finished object. Yeah, and then The other socks that I knit during my holiday, they are a new cast on, and I sort of have 3 half-finished objects. Now, what I did is I packed several of the 10-gram minis by Opal. Forgot to bring some to show you, but I'm sure you all have seen those 10-gram minis. And I am trying to knit a 10-gram sock that uses up exactly 10 grams. So that's sort of what I was going for. So this was the first sock I knit. I used 40 stitches, and I knit 29 rounds for the cuff. Then I did a short row heel, German short row heel. I knit, I think, 22 rounds for the foot, and then I did the start toe, and I had a little bit left over. Whoops, that's the yarn end, but this is what I had left. Then I knit the next sock, and I just added a few rounds to both the leg and the foot, and I changed up the pattern a little bit. So I had a 2x2 rib here, I did a 1x1 rib here, and I still had a bit left over, but I couldn't find it. And then I used the next 10-gram mini, and that started off with this color. So I thought it would be a different color to the other 2 socks. But then after this little bit, there was a knot, and then suddenly it was the same color as this one. So that was quite a surprise. So the feet are sort of the same, but you can see this is a different color up here. For just a little sock, I don't mind having 2 different colorways in one ball of yarn, and this being a 10-gram mini, I don't think it's a problem. I did another 2x2 rib, but then I knit a broken rib for the rest of the sock, and again I added some rounds. I didn't want to add stitches, so this is the biggest sock of the 3, and I managed to have only this left over. So this is sort of the perfect size now, but I know that the minis vary slightly in the yardage that they have. I'll talk about that a bit later with a different project, but I think all 3 sizes are, you can easily get 1 sock out of 1 mini, and if you have 2 minis the same, you can knit a pair of socks for a child or a big baby. I'm not quite sure what size that is. I wanted to measure it and look in the those tables that tell you what how many stitches to use for what size and these things, and then maybe I can figure out what shoe size that is. Yeah, but I knit 3 little socks and had a lot of fun, and my goal is to film a tutorial on how to knit these socks, and then you know how many stitches and rows to do if you have a 10-gram mini, or if you have a 20-gram mini, you can knit a pair of socks with that 20-gram mini. And I can also show how to knit socks, because I've been asked to do a tutorial on how to knit socks. So I decided to do that with this little one. Then you can practice with the little one, and then you can use the same techniques with more stitches and more rounds for a proper grown-up sock. Yeah, so that's all the socks I knit. Then I another new cast on is another little sock yarn project, and that's the next mystery gnome. So you know that Sarah Shearer is the gnome designer, and this year is the year of gnomes, and this is her 9th mystery gnome that she's designed, and the mystery is still running. So if you are taking part and you haven't knit clues 1 to 3 yet, you may not want to look, but I think most of the people who participate will have knit that, because yesterday clue 4 came out, but I haven't knit that yet. So this is the mystery gnome number 9, make gnome mistake, and this is the hat. These were the first 3 clues, and as you can see, it's a fairly big hat. So this is going to be a fairly big gnome, I think, but I love the mushroom detail on the hat, And if you don't want to knit color work in your gnome, you could just knit stripes, that's okay. And she gives directions on how to do that if you prefer to do that. But I really like the color work in this hat. And yeah, so the next clue is on how to knit the beard, but I won't go into that. And I'm pretty sure next week I can show you the beard and maybe the finished gnome. I forgot what dates the clothes are going to come out, but yeah, I used Wolldackel hand-dyed yarn. The light blue was one of the minis in my advent calendar 2 years ago, and the dark blue is a leftover yarn from a Stephen West shawl that I once knit out of Wolldackel yarn. So that's the mystery gnome, that will also be my May gnome for the Year of Gnomes. Yeah, that's that. Then the next project out of sock yarn that I'm knitting on is the loop cowl that I'm knitting from a pattern by Bernd Kessler, and it's a fairly simple cowl, but it has this really nice edge on the bottom, and I'm going to repeat this edge at the top of the cowl, and I've decided that it's long enough now, so I have already started the pattern again, and I had already knit quite a bit more, as you can see. So this is all the yarn that I ripped out. I had knit most of this pattern, like from here to here, and then I realized that I was supposed to knit the pattern, or I was supposed to knit 3 rounds of the same pattern and then go to the next step, and I'd forgotten about that, and I'd only done 2 rounds, so I had to rip back, and I just did the 3rd round of the first bit of pattern and then changed to the next bit, and that's where I stopped. And what I did is I offset the pattern so that when I fold it over, the points won't be at the same spot, but they will be offset. So the point from this bit will be in between those points, so that should look really funny, I think. And yeah, that looked like a nice size to wear as a cowl. And also this cowl goes with the pullover that I knit in the same color, but out of the thicker yarn, the 6-ply yarn, and this is the 4-ply yarn in the same color. And then I can wear it with the pullover or without, any way I feel. So this is one of the projects that's fairly close to being finished. Not quite sure I'll finish it this week, but I think next week at the latest this should be done. And then I have one more project out of 4-ply sock yarn, and that's another new cast on, and that's the Go Big Orgo Gnome Pullover by Sarah Shearer. So as I said, this is the year of gnomes, and I'm knitting all the gnome things this year. I'm going to show you the gauge swatch that I did for the pullover, and I actually knit a hat. So this hat is the Go Big Orgo Gnome hat by Sarah Shearer, and I used it, as I said, as a gauge swatch, but also to see if the colors worked out together. Especially with the 2 blue colors, I wasn't quite sure. There's sometimes really low contrast with those 2 colors, but I feel it's okay. There's enough dark parts in the dark blue, and I love the red pink color with the light blue. So this is what the yoke is going to look like from the pullover, but the pattern is written bottom up. So I started with the sleeves because I thought that's something that's easy to carry around, and I don't have to carry around three balls of yarn, because if I'd started with the front and back, there are no gnomes on the bottom of the pullover, but you can knit a little, there's a little color work there. I think there are little mushrooms. And so what I did is I knit the 2 cuffs of the sleeves while I was still at home, and then I only had to bring this 1 ball of yarn, and I knit the first sleeve. There's no color work on the sleeves, and then I knit a little bit on the second sleeve. So that's what I knit on this pullover. So once the second sleeve is finished, I will knit the front and back from the bottom up. And then when I've reached the same point under the arms for all three parts, then I can put them together and I can start the yoke, and then I will finally get to knit the gnomes. So that's the Go Big Orgo Gnome pullover by Sarah Shearer. The colourful yarns are out of the Beauty series by Opal, and this light blue is basically a solid colour by Opal, but this colour is sort of very slightly variegated, is that the right word? Or maybe a tonal, I don't know. So it's not really solid. It's supposed to be a solid colour, but I love the very slight variation in this light blue, and really looking forward to having a pullover in this colour. Yeah, so that was the third new cast on. So that's all the new cast ons, and that's all the projects out of, no, not all of them, but anyway, that's that. On to crochet. I told you that I was going to take the crochet project with me, where I'm crocheting these squares. The pattern is called Arietis, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and I just love the way the colors go together, and it's not a very complicated color pattern, but I just love the way the colors sort of flow into one another. And these are the two different combinations of the same colors that I'm crocheting. These were the first 6 squares that I finished, and this is the way I'm going to sew all of them together. And I am working on these 7 pieces now, and not quite sure how far I was before I went on holiday, but yeah, I finished all the crochet except for the main colors. I wanted to show you how much I had left over, but I'll do that next week. So I finished crocheting with this, so with the like middle blues. So the only colors I'm still crocheting are white and the darkest blue. And for those middle blues, all 3 colors, I only used 150 gram ball to do all these 15 pieces. And with the white and the darkest blue, I'm still working with the first ball, but I only have a little left, so I will have to use a second one, second white and second dark blue one. But yeah, I'm really close. So I only need to crochet those 2 rounds in white or dark blue on all the 7 pieces. Probably won't finish that this week, but still I'm really happy that I'm getting there. And so there's 2 more rounds for those 7 pieces, and then quite a bit of sewing. So yeah, but I'm really looking forward to finishing this little tiny blanket that's going to live on my stove here in my shop. That's that. And then the next crochet project is the blanket Stomp. That's I'm crocheting that out of the 6-ply Opal sock yarn. This is a rainforest color, and this is the solid color that I'm using for the dinosaur. So the blue is the background, no, the blue is the dinosaur, and the green is the background color. And as I said, this is my in the hotel project in the evening when we were watching TV. And yeah, I just kept that next to my bed, and I could sit there and crochet, and I did quite a bit. And actually I finished, I got to more than half the rows that I have to crochet. So I think I'm on row 106, and the whole blanket has 206 rows. So yeah, I'm really happy with how the dinosaur is coming along. I think this is another one of those planty things. I think this is the second to last stripe on the belly of the dinosaur, and this is the first bit of one of its arms. Yeah, so still loving this interlocking crochet technique. Still think it's a really fun technique. It's easy to work. I really enjoy working on this blanket, and we'll see how that keeps growing. And then the third crochet project I want to show you today is a green blanket that I've been working on for quite a while, but I haven't done anything for a long time, and that's the one where I crochet squares out of little 10-gram minis, and that's where I come back to the minis that I talked about before. And when I started this blanket, I just started crocheting a classic granny square out of 10 grams, and I wanted to see how many rounds I could crochet. And back then I used a 3.5mm needle, and I got to 9 rounds. So with some 10-gram minis, I could crochet a little more, but I couldn't finish the 10th round. And with some minis, I didn't even manage to do the 9 rounds. So with some of so these are the squares that I have already done and attached. And if you were to look really closely, some of the minis I had to use a different color to finish the square off, which is okay. I'm using so many different colors, it doesn't really matter. And with the minis that I had a bit of yarn left, I would keep that bit to use on the squares where I didn't have enough. Now, I started crocheting in the holidays. I said I'll just bring those little minis, and they are something very easy to work on. I just need this 10-gram mini and a crochet hook, and then I can just crochet a few stitches wherever I am. And I found that I had quite a lot left over with my squares. So with this one, I already cut it off. All that was left. So I was I wasn't quite sure whether 3.5 was the right crochet hook, and I thought maybe I have to use a 4mm needle, and I crocheted this last night just to see how it comes out. And these are 9 rounds with the 4mm needle, so it's quite a bit bigger than the others, which is a bit crazy. They're both just 9 rounds of crochet, and it's such a big difference. And I still have this much left over. So I weighed this morning, and these are actually 12 grams. So I don't know whether Opal have become more generous with their minis. So I weighed them all, and most of them weighed between 11 and 12 grams. I also weighed the socks, and they were between 10 and 11 grams. So yeah, that's interesting. So I'm going to undo this square because it's just too big. And I know I can, if I crochet them together, it'll sort of even out a little bit. But I think this is just too big. The other 3 are fine. They are also more similar to the ones that are already in the blanket. And this is not a lot of work. So I'll just undo this square, or I'll use it for something else. I'm not sure yet. But this is too big for the blanket. Yeah, but I thought that's quite interesting to see how the size or the weight of those mini squares can also differ. And 1 or 2 grams doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's just a 10-gram mini, it's, yeah, you notice the difference. Yeah, so I just added a few of those, and once I have enough squares to join to the blanket, I'm trying to always get enough squares to either have that length or the other length, so I can crochet them on the go, so I don't have to cut this light green yarn every time I attach a square. Yeah, so that was another crochet project, and then I have 2 more knit projects, and one of them is the Vortex Shawl that I showed you last time. This is one of my oldest works in progress that I have, and I started this shawl 9 years ago. And I decided it'd be nice to have it done before the 10 years are full. So this is basically the Vortex Shawl. It's another free pattern on Ravelry. It's a very simple shawl pattern, and I'm knitting out of this pure cotton that my sister brought from Japan. So you can see I still have a lot left. And after I finished, or once I decided the shawl itself was big enough, I cast on a few stitches provisionally, and I started a knit on border. And I had done 1/4 of the shawl, which is this is one segment, and this is the second segment. So I did that years ago, I think about 5 to 6 years ago, and then I stopped for some reason. But now I have done another 2 sections. So I did this bit during my holidays and this bit, which means I have now attached the border to half the shawl. So the next thing I did is I put in a longer cable, and now I can show you how big the shawl is, because now I have a really big cable in there. So this is the size of the shawl, and it's about as tall as I am. If I pull it a bit, not quite, it now reaches the floor and it goes up to here. So I think once it's blocked, it's probably as tall as I am, and I love it. I think it looks so beautiful. At the moment, this weighs about 120 grams, which is not heavy at all. And yeah, I think once it's blocked, it's going to be really beautiful. But I still have to knit the other half of the edge. And this is, so each segment has 100 stitches. So I have already sort of bound off with the knit on edge 400 stitches. I have to do another 400 stitches, which means I have to knit another 800 rows. And I put in a little bead every selvage stitch. So 1 bead for 2 rows. That means another 400 beads. I know it's a bit crazy, but I love to have beads on the edge of my shawls. And once I'm going to block the edge, it has these tiny little triangles on the edge. So that should look really nice. Yeah, and I'm really determined to keep knitting on this. So even if I only do like 1 or 2 pattern repeats every week, I'd love to do 1 pattern repeat every day. I think I'll try 1 pattern repeat every day, and then that would be 7 repeats every week. I'll have to calculate how long it's going to take me to finish it then. 1 pattern repeat is 16 rows, just in case you want to calculate that for me. Yeah, so that's my Vortex shawl. Really happy I got to work on it during the holidays, and happy with my progress. That brings me to my last project for this week, and that's that's our knit along the star cushion asterisk. I took that with me because that's fairly easy knitting, and I have finished 3 of the star points, and I started the 4th, and then once I've done that, there's only the last one to do. Before I start with the last one, I will weave in all the ends that I haven't woven in yet. And once I get the last point about half or 2/3 done, I will start stuffing the cushion. And then my sister's going to get a beautiful silver star cushion. This is the yarn that I have left. I'm pretty sure it won't be just enough, but I'll probably have a little left over. My sister wants to have the leftover of that yarn so she can knit it into the blanket that she's knitting at the moment. She's knitting a grey and pink blanket as a present, and she would love to have a little bit of this glitter yarn in there. So I have to be, she wants me to finish this quickly so she can get it into the blanket at the point where she wants to have it. Yeah, that's everything I knit during my holidays, and I hope you enjoyed seeing my projects grow, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!